All right, Jeff Zimmerman with Tito Mercado, super lightweight contender, getting back in the ring on December 13th, a Friday up in Stockton, California, against Antonio Moran. How you doing, Tito?
I'm doing good. Doing good. How about yourself, Jeff?
I'm doing well, man. The first time I talked to you, you were just the prospect, and now I get to say like world title contender. You come a long way in a short time.
Yeah, it did. And it all kind of, when you think about it, it feels like such a long of a journey, man. But everything's been flying so fast, man. I know, by the time next year, man, I'm gonna be fighting for a world title. So it's gonna be crazy how fast everything flies.
Yeah, I think the first time I asked you was, "Hey man, why are you doing this alone? Why aren't you signed with a promoter and this and that?" You're like, "No, we're good, we're good." But then the next couple interviews, you latched on with Matchroom and things seem to be taking off.
Yeah, no, I think definitely Matchroom's been giving me the exposure that I definitely deserved, and obviously with that win with Pedraza, I think it definitely skyrocketed me. I think all the 140 pounders kind of know who I am now, which I think they did, but now they kind of have like nowhere to run a little bit. So it's definitely been great, man. This year's kind of been a little slow for me just because I've only, this is gonna be my second fight this year due to the injury. So I'm just trying to really just step back on the gas, full gas, no brakes. Then this next fight right here.
Yeah, and I should mention you're on a big card. I know Gabe Flores Jr. very well and his dad. You're on a big card with Joe Cordina up in Stockton. I'm sure it's going to be a sold out crowd because I know Gabe does well out there, and I'm sure you got a lot of fans up in Stockton too.
Yeah, California, I mean, Stockton's, just up the ways from us. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely expecting my little fair, share crowd over there. Definitely a lot of great fighters on there. So yeah, like I said, man, I'm just looking forward to, stealing the night or, like I said, just having a great performance. And I really just want to step back on it really strong, man. Like I said, I've been itching to get back in the ring, and I really want these guys that are fighting for world titles. I've been seeing a lot of them. I've just been stalking them, just waiting.
Yeah, and we're gonna get into that. Trust me, we're gonna get into that because you're kind of that quiet assassin. You know, you're a humble guy, but you definitely say what's on your mind, and I know what you're looking to do. But before we get into that, Moran, he's been around, right? I mean, he's
Yeah.
fought the top names. I mean, he fought Andy Cruz, Barboza, Jermaine Ortiz, Pedraza. He's probably more of a gatekeeper at this stage, but those guys that have experience and have been around the block a little bit, about 40 fights. What have you seen in him? Is there anything that you gotta like worry about or train for, or just, keep on your P's and Q's?
I mean, he's a tough guy. He's fought the best of the best, obviously, and he's given all of them problems. He's definitely touched them up. His fair share of licks. Um, but he's coming off a win, man. He just beat a unbeaten guy who was like I want to say 22, 23, if I'm not mistaken. So I know definitely right now he's confident. Especially going against another undefeated fighter. So I know he's probably on his best road right now that he could possibly be on. When you beat a guy that's undefeated, 22, you think you're the man. So I'm definitely expecting the best version of him. Like I said, I know he's a complicated guy. He's coming forward. He's gonna come to fight, and then obviously he's gonna come to win. So I'm just expecting the best version of him. And honestly, I just want to be able to beat him the best out of everybody, just knock him out quick, and onto Christmas.
Yeah, and that was kind of a follow-up, do better than the last guy did, kind of what you did to Pedraza, right? Just kind of like show, hey, I don't care that you've been a champion. I don't care who you are, and let me just knock you out of here.
Yeah, for sure, man. And then obviously, the people he's fought, obviously, Devin Haney's, the Barbosas, they're all gonna compare the performances on how I did against them. So to be able to just say I did it better than them and in a faster fashion, obviously knock them out, it no matter what you do, people are gonna compare performances, against common opponents. So I'm just looking forward to go there, just knocking them out quick and just showing everybody why I'm the best.
Yeah, and you mentioned Haney. We'll get to Haney here in a second, but you made me think. I just talked to Abdullah Mason, who fights on the big Saudi card this weekend, and Tim Bradley said once he becomes champion, everyone's going to turn the other way, because of how good he is and skilled and so forth. Not that you would, you guys aren't in the same weight class, but he was kind of making that point. I feel like I mean, if not already today, you're kind of one of those avoided fighters too. You talked about fighting for a world title next year. Do you think you're going to get your shot that these guys will actually get in the ring with you the way you've been knocking everyone out?
I don't think so. That's why I'm trying to work my way in those rankings now. I know WBO has me ranked up and IBF, I think 11 on both of them. So I'm trying to just go over there and really get myself ranked in these titles. Obviously, I know some of them are going to try to avoid me, some of the world champions, but I'm sure I'll be able to get in there. And eventually, after knocking so long, man, eventually one of those doors is going to open up. So I think eventually I'll be able to force one of these guys to fight in there. And yeah, man, I swear I'm not even a world champion in that yet, but I feel like I've been avoided since the beginning. I've always called these guys out. I said, certain names, and I never ever heard my name back out. So it's kind of crazy, but we'll see what happens when I'm a champion. We'll see how if it goes even quieter.
Yeah, it just, I mean, the business of boxing, and that's where a guy like Eddie Hearn, who's a master promoter, right? That's where I think being with a promoter has some leverage for you.
Yeah, no, I mean he's definitely, if I'm gonna get big fights, it's definitely gonna be with him. He definitely knows how to sell a fight and put those type of events together. So I'm definitely excited, and I think we'll be able to do big things, especially with, you got new players in the game, right? You got guys like Turkey who can make things happen. So, look at this card that's coming up, man. It's a great card. So to be maybe able to be on something like that, especially if I'm avoided like that, I think those guys will, if anybody's can make it, it'll be those guys right there.
It seems like everybody waits for somebody to not look as good against somebody, right? They're like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe there's a hole. Maybe I can, like if you have an off night or something like that. Not to say you go in there with that mindset, but that's where, like, okay, I'll fight him now.
Yeah, maybe I gotta stop knocking guys out in under 4 rounds. So maybe I gotta do like maybe 7, 8. They're like, oh, you know what? Maybe Tito's power is kind of losing a little bit. Maybe we gotta
R-
do something crazy like that. But
Right,
uh,
right.
but yeah, that's usually the case, man. You one world champion either loses or you don't look that good. Everybody's like, oh, now's the time to go there and get him. And sometimes the case is, it does happen that way. But sometimes it goes and those champions or whoever the fighter is, they go and show them that that's not the way it's gonna work.
Right, right. So let's talk about your weight class though. And there's a lot of interchanging, I think, going around like between 135, 147. We're all stacked around there. But today we got WBO, we got Teofimo, we got Richardson, Hitchens. I saw them both actually at the Ortiz Lubin fight. They were both out there. Then you got Antoine, I can't say, Gary Russell, and Subriel Matias. Is there one of those guys that you want specifically, or you don't care who it is, you just want a title shot?
I mean, obviously, man, I want a world title. It doesn't really matter, what route I had to go get it. But preferably, I mean, I just because I want to shut those guys up, they just the most annoying. Definitely Teofimo and Richard Hitchens. I think those guys are the most annoying out of the. Obviously Matthias. I would love to take his belt. He's been beat before. Russell, he fights once a year, so whenever he fights the next year, I'm willing to fight him. But definitely those guys, I just can't stand those two dudes right there. They just annoy me. So I would definitely love to take those belts off them first.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about Teofimo, and we drilled him at the fights a couple weeks ago. But him and Shakur, he kind of made it sound like it was done. They both have kind of said it was done, but then he couldn't say anything. Um, let's assume that happens. Who do you like in that fight?
I think Shakur should be able to win that fight just because I mean we've seen it time after time, man. Every time there's a guy that runs around the ring or it makes Teofimo look really bad. You don't know how to cut the ring off. That just style doesn't really suit him. And to be honest, I'm a little well, don't get me wrong, Teofimo could go over there and do something crazy. He's done some good performances against like Lomachenko and Josh Taylor, right? But either way, for me at least, since I don't like both those guys really, it's a lose-lose for me because either one of them beat each other. Now it takes away my credit from beating them. So in my point of view, it's a lose-lose for me. But I think Shakur should be able to beat him. Just based on the styles, they don't match up real well.
Yeah, and what would you and Shakur look like?
Oh, I think Shakur already kind of has an idea. That's why he don't really want to. When I called him out the other time, he didn't really want to say nothing. He was just like trying to avoid me the whole time. But he's even blocked me on all social medias. The boy is scared. But I think definitely it's gonna be a tactical fight in the beginning. But I think I ultimately just break him down and knock him out. And then I see him for what he really is. He's a good boxer, but you also got to see too on who he's fighting. Top rank in the beginning of his career when he was with them, they matched him up really perfectly. Fighting guys like Valdez who fit into his style. All these guys that fit into his style perfectly. I don't think he matches up really well with me.
And you and Keyshawn went at it a little bit too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Would
but
you like to
he
get
he's
him?
I'll definitely like to get him whenever he's back and stable. I don't know. He's like all over the place, to be honest with you. As long as he makes weight, we could get it on. I know he's trying to come up to 40. He's trying to fight next year. I heard he called out Albright, which makes no damn sense. Why would he want to rematch with Albright? But I'm right here at 140. So if he wants to make that fight next, we could definitely make that fight next. But I don't think he wants it either. I think that whole stable knows what's up.
What would next like if you had your way next year? You said a title shot. How many fights? What does next year look like for you?
Definitely, man. I want to get back in there immediately. So sometime maybe back in March already again, for the next fight, and hopefully somebody in the top five, top 10. I'll probably have to do another fight, and then during the winter time, fall time, I'd like to get a title shot. To be honest, I think that's about right. A lineup about right time. Obviously anything could happen. That could be the next fight. Things just it's crazy in boxing how things work. You can just get that call. So, uh, honestly, anytime next year, I'm ready for that call.
You mentioned Richardson Hitchens. Uh, he told me that he wasn't going to be probably be at 140 for next year. Is kind of what his thoughts were. Um, his style, he's a pure boxer. Um, what would that fight look like?
That fight will be a good fight for as long as it lasts. I think same thing with him, man. He's a good fighter, but we seen with the Limos fights, he can't handle guys that have aggressive style or can punch. He had a very hard time, and a lot of people thought he lost the fight as well as I did. I thought he lost that fight, but good fighter, man. But once you put a guy that, like I said, can do everything, I don't really see it matching up with him. I mean, a lot of guys think that I'm just a power puncher or this that, but they don't really know that I can kind of do everything. I can box too. So once I have an opponent with me that I can do all those things with, I think they'll be very surprised.
Well, let me ask you this because you mentioned people, I mean, the record speaks for itself, right? 17 and 0, 16 knockouts. So they think he's a knockout guy, he's, maybe not as well-rounded as a boxer. The same is being said a little bit with the Devin Haney Brian Norman fight this weekend. And Tito, I've been calling this fight. I mean, everyone I've talked to, I've been calling this fight maybe the super fight nobody saw coming, right? Because
Yeah,
it was kind of out of left field.
yeah.
And I talked to Devin about it, and to his credit, he's like, he's the best in the division. I want another belt. He's kind of one of those legacy guys, right? He's not just chasing a bag. Of course, that's important, but it seems like he really cares about legacy. I think you're one of those guys, Crawford, Canelo. There's certain guys have that mindset. Um, a lot of people have said that Brian, he's a one-trick pony. He's got the left hook. Um, Tim Bradley Jr. says he's got two hands. Don't be surprised if that right hand. How do you see that fight playing out? And there's levels in boxing, we know that. And Devin has the resume. What do you think?
It's a tricky fight, man. It depends. I think I'm leaning towards Brian Norman. He's a fighter that's a fresher fighter. Obviously, I'm not saying Devin is not, but with that Ryan Garcia fight, I don't know how much it really took out of him. I can't really assess his last performance against I believe it was Ramirez, right, that he fought.
Ramirez, yeah.
I can't really say too much because I mean, let's be honest, he was running around the ring the whole time, so it's kind of hard to give a fair assessment of how much. It seems like he's a little traumatized still from getting hit. But I don't know, man. Brian Norman seems like he definitely has power. I haven't seen too much of him to put my money on it, but when I see it of him, he definitely has power. I seen that he knows how to box, so I think honestly those two things are going to be, at least from my thing, a bad recipe for Haney. I think that he's a guy that obviously we've seen that he can't take a punch very too well, and I think that Brian Norman should be able to catch him. Not in the early rounds, and like I said, it all depends on how Haney comes in. If he comes in moving around crazy and Norman can't catch him around the ring, then I could see how Haney could possibly maybe pull off a decision. But other than that, man, if I think he even tries to engage a little bit, I think Norman puts him out.
Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of mixed opinions on this fight. Um, some people think Devin's going to just outbox him, and again the resume, but then again the power of Norman.
And he can fight, man. It's not just power. I've seen a little bit of him. He looks like he can box. So it's kind of hard to say. I guess whoever comes out better on that night, right, is really ultimately is gonna whoever has the better strategy that night. But I think Norman definitely has the capabilities of putting Haney out for sure.
And there's been a lot of talk. It's not official yet, but Oscar De La Hoya confirmed this at the Virgil Ortiz fight that Ryan Garcia and Mario Barrios will probably be the next fight. It needed to be negotiated. Ryan's still out of that, that core, like the Shakur Devins and so forth, without a title. Um, Barrio seems to, be the guy always chosen, but he's been in there with the best of the best, Thurman and Tank and Pacquiao for that matter. What are your thoughts on that fight?
Well, I'm just surprised how they keep giving Ryan title shots after title shots after just losing and losing. Obviously Barrios, no disrespect to Barrios, the world champion, but he's a guy that just, like you said, has been lucky, man, to be able to get these fights, with Tank, Thurman, Pacquiao, now maybe Garcia, which are money fights. And, to be honest, I think he's the least skilled 147-pounder champion out of all of them. So for him to be able to do that, though, I definitely give my respect to him for obviously taking the fights. And, obviously, man, any fighter wants to be in that financial position, right? To be able to be called and to make some money and obviously to fight. And I don't know, man. If that fight does happen, I don't have too much faith in Ryan Garcia no more, to be honest with you. I
Hmm.
think that maybe Mario Barros might be able to beat him, to be honest with you. I mean, I know it's kind of a stretch. I mean, I would think, if you asked me probably a year ago, I would say Ryan Garcia would be able to, just knock him out quick. But his last performances, man, they haven't been looking good. Rollies look horrible, and then obviously there's always excuses after that, that he wasn't there, this, that. So I don't know. I think Barrios might be able to pull this fight off, to be honest with you.
Interesting. And then there's one that's kind of flying under the radar a little bit, coming up next month in San Antonio, Pitbull and Roach. Obviously Roach wanted the rematch with Tank that fell through, but him and Pitbull looks like a good little scrap.
No, it looks like a good fight, and I think they're doing it at 140 too. So I mean, that's a fight that I'll be interested in too. Maybe for the next one, if whoever the winner comes out. But I don't know. I feel like I feel like Ramon Roach is a good fighter. So is Pitbull, but I think Pitbull might be a style that doesn't really match Roach too well. I think Roach does better with guys that box. I think this one is not gonna be. I don't. I think Pitbull might be able to win this one. I think that style just doesn't. I don't think it links up too good with him. I think Pitbull will probably be able to beat him just because he's just so uncomfortable to fight. Just because he's that style just doesn't match with Roach.
And I'll get you out of here. I'm with the undefeated super lightweight contender Tito Mercado. Big fight December 13th on the rise. And Hannah reminded me or informed me actually before this, you just got listed on ESPN's top 25 under 25. Um, Now you win a title, those lists kind of become obsolete a little bit, right? Because those are kind of like prospect type lists in a way.
Right.
But from the first time I talked to you a few years ago, it seems like your profile keeps rising and rising. And how, do you can you feel it, with the fans and just within the boxing world that, man, this like your name is really starting to get out there and be mentioned with some of these other guys?
Oh yeah, for sure. Now when I go to events, I've been doing a lot of commentating too. But when I go to events, I'm walking around, everybody's asking me for pictures and autographs and stuff now. So it's definitely the whole perspective of Tito Mercado from when I barely started to now has definitely changed. Especially in San Antonio, man. When I went to, I think I want to go commentate some fights over there, man. And San Antonio, they showed me a lot of love. No, I'm sorry, Dallas. They showed me a lot of love over there, and it's been great, and obviously it comes with its territory, I guess, right? I gotta keep performing and doing my things for me to be able to have that level of recognition from the fans to be able to get noticed like that. So it's definitely been fun, man. And it's when you think about it, it's been a long journey from when I barely started, my first pro fight out there in Georgia to now to being recognized by fans, autographs, pictures. It's been surreal so far.
Yeah, you mentioned the commentary, and I think you were in Dallas, and I didn't realize you were here, but it that must help too, right? Just being, how is that? Do you like that as like a future? Is that like a future career type of thing, or you're kind of doing it now?
Yeah, possibility, man. I do it more for, I just love boxing. I love, honestly being on there too is kind of it's different, from me being in the ring. I never actually had the point of view from being, a coach or a commentator. So I definitely like, calling fights. I just love boxing. So to be able to call fights right there and do what I do, and it's been fun. I'm not gonna lie. I've been enjoying it, doing my homework before the fights and stuff like that. It's been pretty cool. So definitely, I wouldn't count it out. Definitely in the future, maybe I might be a future commentator down the line. Who knows?
Yeah, and like you said, it gives you a different perspective on the fights, than you're there ringside, right? It's different than watching it on TV or watching film. You're actually seeing it
Yeah,
live.
and then also get the perspective of the judges, right? I can't. I'm in the ring, so now I get to kind of see what the judges might be looking at. So it's crazy kind of to see something from a different point of view. And I definitely learned a lot from it. And like I said, I'm having fun. So I think that's the main thing.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. That's cool. Let me ask you, and again, we'll get out here in a minute. A fight that just got announced. Obviously, the Jake fight fell through, but Jake is now fighting Anthony Joshua, two-time heavyweight champion of the world. It's not like he's been retired for 10, 20 years. He's still probably a top 10 heavyweight in the world. He has potential fights with Tyson Fury. I mean, the guy's still active, right?
Right.
When you heard the news, what was your thought and what do you think?
At first, I thought it was a prank. I ain't gonna lie to you. I was like, "This got to be a prank, no way." But I mean, if it really does, come through, a lot of times, they announce stuff and it ends up falling through or stuff like that. But if it does, I mean, I definitely give my respects to Jake. I'm not sure what's on there, contractually. I gotta assume there's some type of I know they did like 8 rounds, and I'm not sure if it's but like what people say, they allegedly say they're scripted. But it'll be interesting to see, man. Like I said, it'll be a good fight. I think a lot of the casual, well, not casual fans, but the actual hardcore boxing fans are hoping Joshua, just knocks Jake out. But I think that's good for boxing, man. I think it's gonna definitely bring a lot of eyeballs, though, for sure. So whatever they're doing, I think should be interesting. I'm more excited about this than the Tank one for sure.
Yeah, so the way it sounds, you think Jake has a puncher's chance?
I don't think so, but like I said, you just never know. Never know. Sometimes you'd be surprised. I really don't think so. I think Joshua should be able to knock him out. I'm just not sure. Like I said, man, a lot of these things sometimes are a lot of these things are just scripted. I'm not sure if Joshua is gonna go in there trying to knock him out or not. It's gonna be, at least for me, when Jake Paul fought Mike Tyson, I feel like Mike Tyson was just so old. I feel like at times if Jake really wanted to, he probably could have put Mike Tyson out, not because he was better than him, just because he was a lot older. And I felt like a level of respect or whatever there was, Jake didn't do that. So I'm not sure what to really expect from these type of fights. But definitely, him, promoting that now he's fighting Anthony Joshua. I think that's definitely. I think a lot of people are going to tune in more now for this one for sure.
Yeah, and listen, everyone's been clamoring and telling Jake, fight a real fighter, fight a real fighter. I don't think anybody, even
Expected
when he
it.
mentioned his name before, I think people thought, yeah, right, pie in the sky. And he's fighting not only a real fighter, but a heavyweight champion of the world.
If he wins, man, rank him, and all the things. Top, make him become mandatory. I don't even, I can't. There's nothing I can say about it. There's nothing. At first, I think the WBC ranked him, and I was like, how the hell they rank him? Guys like myself or guys that work so hard, we barely started getting ranked, and a guy like this just comes in, gets ranked. But if he wins a fight like this or he does something crazy, man, rank this guy because I mean, you got to give respect to it too.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah.
Huh.
I'll be tuning in for sure. But listen, man, you got a big fight to keep your journey alive. You got that. I got to go back and see who you did not knock out, right? I need to look at who because 17 and 0 and 16 knockouts. I got to see who the lucky guy was who did not get knocked out. But big fight coming up Friday, December 13th in Stockton, California against Antonio Moran. What should we expect?
Expect, man, the same old Tito again. Go out there and go for the kill like I always do. I think Moran, like I said, is a good fighter, man. He's been in there with the best. He's definitely given a lot of guys a lot of problems, but I think that I'm gonna go over there and show, make it look easy. Same thing like I did with the Pedraza fight. He's made it difficult for some fighters. He has a little weird, tricky style, and I just made it look easy and knocked him out quick. So I'm expecting the same thing with Moran. I just want to finish off with a bang this last year, and I think like I'm gonna do exactly that come December 13th.
All right, man. Tito Mercado, one of the hottest young contenders in all of boxing, scratching his and clawing his way to the top. And he's right there. He's right there with the big dogs at 140, and a win should definitely propel him. Man, it's always great catching up with you. I was telling Hannah the Nicaraguan connection, not from me, but I married into it. But
Right.
love talking to you, man.
Likewise, Jeff. I appreciate you.
Good luck, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. You too, man.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.